The confrontation between the major powers of China and the United States has entered a complex and multi-level competition area. The United States wants to negotiate with China, and the two countries negotiate the next stage of trade relations. At the same time, the United States still besieged China militarily. Moreover, in addition to military containment, it also strengthened technological containment. The United States and Europe want to contain China in technology trade. However, China will not wait to be beaten. Beijing's counterattacks are also strengthening. According to reports from Taiwan, from October 1 to 4, the Chinese People's Liberation Army has 38, 39, 16, and 56 fighters. Flew into Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone. On October 4, 56 sorties of fighters entered the airspace of southwestern Taiwan. This is a record-breaking one-day high. October 1 is the National Day of the mainland. From October 1 to 4, the PLA fighter planes came every day. This carries a special political signal. What political signal? One is to warn Taiwan independence, and the other is Beijing's resolute reunification. In addition, Beijing also released a signal. The PLA fighter planes also flew over the Bashi Channel. The Bashi Channel is a waterway leading to the Pacific Ocean. This signal is for the United States. Said that the mainland is in the future, whether it is a war in the Taiwan Strait, or when defending sovereignty, the possibility of US military intervention has been calculated. Military exercises, especially military exercises outside or on the border, all have a specific meaning, and it has the dual meaning of politics and military. Strictly speaking, mainland fighters cruising the Taiwan Strait are not considered military exercises. Therefore, the political signal is particularly strong. Of course, the fighter planes cruising the Taiwan Strait also bring the taste of training, drills, and pathfinding. This is similar to military exercises. However, apart from the discussion on the island of Taiwan, the United States can't sit still. U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price spoke, calling on Beijing, stop exerting pressure on Taiwan, and said that Washington strongly urges Beijing, stop this kind of behavior that undermines regional peace and stability. The United States stepped up to speak, and that was expected. Otherwise, how can the United States lead the team? However, who will answer your verbal appeals? So what? The United States launched its allies and conducted a military exercise. According to VOA, the United States immediately organized multinational warships, including 6 countries including Japan, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Canada, and New Zealand. In the northern part of the Philippine Sea, a joint military exercise was conducted. According to the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, on the 10/5 press release, the U.S. dispatched the USS Ronald Reagan, USS Ronald Reagan, USS Carl Vinson, USS Carl Vinson. The USS Reagan has just completed its deployment in the Middle East. And the British Royal Navy's Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier, HMS Queen Elizabeth. There are a total of 17 warships, 3 of which are aircraft carriers. This time the United States brought naval vessels from 6 countries to demonstrate to China. Counterattack Chinese military planes have cruised across the Taiwan Strait in multiple sorties these days. On the mainland, during the National Day on October 1, sorties flew over the Taiwan Strait for more than 4 consecutive days. Including the J-16 multi-purpose attack aircraft, Su-30 fighter jets, J-16 fighter jets, Y-8 anti-submarine aircraft, H-6 bomber, and Air Police 500 early warning aircraft. In addition to the J-20 stealth fighter, there are many projects. Fighters, bombers, and early warning aircraft. Moreover, the H-6 can be on the ground or on the sea. This is a complete battle formation. On the mainland, this is equivalent to an aerial display and a flight parade over the southwestern waters of the Taiwan Strait. The United States is the coalition, the 6-nation coalition. However, the Taiwan military is very quiet. Why is it so quiet? There are 2 main reasons. First, the Taiwan military is unwilling to provoke the People's Liberation Army, nor does it dare to provoke it. On the Taiwan side, they all say that they should closely monitor and thoroughly control the movements of the Continental Army. This is the rhetoric that Taiwan has always said, and it is also the usual saying. Second, Taiwan is very precise. Why do you want to mess with the People's Liberation Army? I just said that I don't want to provoke, nor dare to provoke. In this case, as long as you are quiet and put on a look of being bullied, then they seek support from the United States, win the sympathy of the world, and win the support of world public opinion. Of course, the so-called support of world public opinion is mainly from the camp on the US side. In March 2019, the Continental Army aircraft entered Taiwan's Southwest Air Defense Identification Zone for the first time. After more than 2 years, mainland fighter planes have patrolled the Taiwan Strait for more than 600 sorties. The so-called center line of the Taiwan Strait has long ceased to exist. Last year in 2020, due to tensions between China and the United States, the Trump administration has sold arms to Taiwan several times. It made the mainland very unhappy. As for the Tsai Ing-wen government, it also fell to the United States. As a result, Continental Army aircraft have come to Taiwan's relevant waters more and more frequently, especially the Southwest Sea. Why do mainland fighters and ships frequently visit the Taiwan Strait? The simplest answer is that the mainland wants to warn Taiwan independence, as well as the United States and Japan. There is another purpose. In the last year, Beijing has declared to the United States, "This is China's own backyard, sovereignty. No interference from the United States is allowed." In other words, it is already normal for Continental Army aircraft and ships to come to the Taiwan Strait. It is like a patrol boat on the mainland, which often goes to the waters of the Diaoyu Islands. It is also normalized. Then, starting in October last year, the PLA fighters, warships, it's not just coming to Taiwan Strait on a regular basis. And it is scaled, and even actual combat. Just now we said that the Taiwan military is not willing to provoke, nor dare to provoke the People's Liberation Army. It is under this normalization, scale, and even actual combat situation. I don't want to have a gun misfire. In October last year, we had 2 videos on the issue of Taiwan Strait storms. At that time, we said that the cloud of war over the Taiwan Strait was getting thicker and thicker. What does that mean? When the United States, Taiwan, and the mainland, the tension in the Taiwan Strait continues to increase. This creates a spiral of tension. The storm will only accumulate more and more. The tension on both sides of the strait will spiral upward. Because of these 3 parties, none of them took a step back. There were rumors at that time that Trump might deliberately initiate a war in the Taiwan Strait for the sake of the election. The Taiwan Democratic Progressive Party government does not feel nervous at all. Instead, they are willing to cooperate. On the mainland side, they severely warned the United States and Taiwan not to play with fire. Because this is Beijing's bottom line, Beijing's red line. The so-called Taiwan Strait war cloud rises. We also made an analogy at that time. If before, the chance of a war in the Taiwan Strait was 5%. So now it is 15%, 20%. This is already several times higher. At that time, some netizens left a message saying that the statement of the Taiwan Strait war was a threat and intimidation. Young Fong made it clear today that we are only telling the status quo and the possibilities faithfully. In addition, it is true that there will be war in the Taiwan Strait, and there may be war. It's the United States, Japan, and Australia. Moreover, they are all official and military statements. Including the Minister of Defense, the Prime Minister is equal. Therefore, we asked some netizens to clarify this situation in particular. Therefore, we have explained the actions and calculations of China, the United States, and Taiwan. However, this is not the focus of today. The key point today is how to fight between China and the United States. Will the game and confrontation between the 2 sides become more and more intense? On October 4, Catherine Tai, U.S. Trade Representative, announcing the Biden administration's new trade strategy with China. The main purpose is that the United States wants to initiate new trade negotiations with China. The previous administration of the United States, the Trump administration, started nearly 2 years of trade negotiations with China, from 2018 to the end of 2019. Then, China and the United States signed the first phase of the trade agreement on January 15, 2020. By the time of Biden, China and the United States did not have any negotiations on trade. The relationship between the two countries has worsened. So, isn't this a contradiction? On the one hand, the United States wants to negotiate with China, but on the other hand, it continues to contain China. In fact, this is not a contradiction for Americans, because this is hegemony. Therefore, on the mainland, don't think that the United States has come to negotiate, which means that Sino-US relations are reconciled. There are signs of reconciliation and slowing down. In the past few days, I have seen many such voices in the mainland media. In fact, this is the American version of talk and fight. This is a bit similar to the way the Chinese Communist Party talks about fighting, although not exactly the same. There is a little difference in the way in the United States. The US uses the hegemonic power in its hands, where the US is strong. The United States sanctions you and surrounds you. In terms of sanctions, the United States imposes sanctions on China's science and technology, because the United States has technological advantages, especially in semiconductors. So the US sanctions Huawei and put hundreds of Chinese companies and entities, put it in the list of entities. The United States imposes sanctions on China on human rights issues, because the United States has the right to speak in the world. This aspect is the strength of the United States. In the military, the United States besieged China. Because the United States has many allies, the United States can unite with its allies and launch military exercises to contain China. Why did the United States not impose financial sanctions on China? Because the United States does not have full certainty. If the United States had full certainty, it would have imposed financial sanctions on China long ago. When we talk about financial sanctions, we mean restricting China's US dollar payments and liquidation. Other aspects of financial wars, such as exchange rate wars, stock markets, capital flows, etc. Both China and the United States have done it a long time ago. However, in this regard, China is not too much. The Chinese Communist Party has so-called talk and fight, concentrate superior forces, lure the enemy into deep, etc. military and political strategy. Therefore, first, China does not need to have high expectations for the upcoming Sino-US negotiations. Mainly, in the past, China had the so-called, for the sake of the overall situation, to be patient, not to tear your face easily, such considerations. However, as far as the United States is concerned, their mode of thinking is not a problem. This is also the Western mode of thinking. I talk to you today, I can still fight with you tomorrow. In May of this year, for the issue of fishing rights in Jersey, British and French warships once confronted in the waters near Jersey. Why did the two sides retreat instead of fighting afterwards? Because both sides know that it can't go on. After weighing the gains and losses, they all withdrew. However, the point is not that the two sides finally withdrew the warship back. The point is the previous confrontation between the two sides. If you don't send warships, you will definitely suffer. The other person will stand on your head. This is Western thinking logic. Let's talk about the example of the United States. The United States withdrew from the Iran nuclear agreement in May 2018. The Trump administration at that time was indispensable. The Trump administration immediately increased sanctions on Iran. It also ordered all countries to comply with US sanctions. As a result, neither China nor Russia renounced the US ban. By March of this year, Iran and China signed a 25-year strategic agreement. The United States saw that something was wrong and immediately negotiated with Iran and renegotiated it. Therefore, the logic of thinking in the Western world is that if you can suppress you, it will suppress you. Will not be soft. Today, the United States is here to negotiate with China because the United States knows, in some ways, China cannot continue to be suppressed. For example, the tariffs imposed in the past. More than 90% of the tariff cost is borne by the United States. In addition, the United States has encountered some economic problems and troubles. Therefore, the United States wants to negotiate with China. Price, the spokesperson of the US State Department, used very strong words, strongly urged the People's Liberation Army to stop pressure on Taiwan, and claimed that this action undermined regional peace and stability. Regarding this aspect, we will not talk about it today. Who is it that caused regional tension and undermined regional peace and stability? Of course, if we talk about these issues in particular, can attract those who stand firm. However, the feature of our program is not to waste time on this kind of war of words. On the other hand, if these issues are particularly emphasized, it's relatively simple to say, it doesn't need to be so hard, so tired. What we hope is that more effort will be spent on strategic issues, analyze more and reason more. Then see if we can provide some forecasts, as well as methods and countermeasures. We look at it this way. Japan hopes to introduce competition between China and the United States to the Taiwan Strait. Why? Because Japan does not want war to occur in the East China Sea or near Japan. Japan is very shrewd. Japan wants to push away the flames of war and hopes that China and the United States will conflict in the Taiwan Strait. In this way, Japan can reap the benefits of fishermen. Australia is eager to try, thinking that as long as there is a conflict in the Taiwan Strait, Australia can follow the United States to win a battle. Why does Australia think so? Because Australia has followed the United States for decades. Australia will almost always participate in wars launched by the United States. 2 reasons. First, Australia follows the United States, which means Australia is on the side of the strong, on the side of victory. That means that Australia is also one of the Western powers. Second, Australia believes that if you stand on the side of the strong, you will definitely win. Australia can follow the food and drink spicy. You can even mess around. Hasn't Australia been tortured and abused as prisoners in Afghanistan? However, Australia is not as shrewd as Japan and has no such brains. Australia just wants to stir up the atmosphere and confront China. What about the US? Young Fong does not feel that the United States really wants to conflict with China in the Taiwan Strait. However, the United States has to act again. The US must put the battle forward, otherwise, in the Western Pacific, the United States can't bring those little brother countries. Needless to say, Indo-Pacific strategy. There is a very paradoxical place here. If the camp between China and the United States, the place where the confrontation occurs is in the Taiwan Strait, for Beijing, there are advantages and disadvantages. The downside is that this is my own yard, which has destroyed Taiwan, which is. Therefore, the approach adopted by Beijing is between this advantage and one disadvantage. Achieve a balance point and seek the greatest benefit. For this reason, Beijing chose the waters southwest of Taiwan. Continental Army aircraft regularly visit the waters of southwest Taiwan, rather than the northern part of Taiwan, or the direction of the Miyako Strait in the northeast. If it is in these 2 directions, it feels like a direct threat to Taipei. On the other hand, there is Japan on the Miyako Strait. In this way, the targeting of Taiwan independence will be reduced. It's not that Continental Army aircraft will not cruise the Miyako Strait, but that China's Navy and Air Force routinely cruise the southwestern waters of Taiwan. Choosing the southwestern waters of Taiwan, Taiwan will immediately understand that this is aimed at the Taiwan independence forces. There is no semicolon. It is very clear. At the same time, this is also an exercise. The PLA Navy and Air Force enter and exit the Pacific through the Bashi Strait. What are you doing in and out of the Pacific Ocean? Of course, it means that it breaks through the first island chain and can go deep into the second island chain, threatening the US military. Therefore, Beijing is advancing side by side, from the Miyako Strait to the north. To the south is the waters of southwest Taiwan and the Bashi Strait. Normalized are the waters of southwest Taiwan and the waters of Diaoyutai. Miyako Strait, East China Sea, will come several times a year, will not let it go. In addition to this pros and cons, there is another place in Beijing that has no choice but to do it. Because the United States can play Taiwan cards. The Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan will definitely fall to the United States. Therefore, Beijing has to be here to show its military power to the United States and warn Taiwan independence forces. So, here comes the point. Since the United States will continue to play the Taiwan card, the DPP will also fall to the United States. Therefore, Beijing will come to the waters southwest of Taiwan on a regular basis. This is the inevitable result. If at this time, the United States is still like yesterday, engage in a six-nation or multi-nation military exercise. This is tantamount to the fact that both China and the United States have brought their forces to this side. So, is this a good thing or a bad thing for Beijing? Our logic is deduced all the way here. In this regard, it is another long story. Let's briefly say it first, so that no audience will get angry and say that Yang Feng hasn't finished speaking. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? It depends on the determination of the United States. If the United States is determined to be strong, then Sino-US conflicts and the chances of confrontation will increase. It looks like this is a bad thing. However, it may not. Why? Because the initiative is on Beijing's side. Yes, the United States